An ugly night for the Phoenix Suns, dropping another game to the Dallas Mavericks by a big margin, 130-111. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, I'll tell you when the game got out of hand, why the game got out of hand, and what can get better. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons and a writer at Suns.com and Dime Magazine. Thank you all for making Locked On Suns your first listen. Happy Tuesday. Hopefully, the Suns result did not get you too down. If you're finding us for the first time, the best way to make sure you find us again is to hit subscribe or follow. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen, wherever you watch, we are there and we are free. The best way to keep us free is to subscribe. If you're on YouTube, drop a comment down below. Also hit that bell to get a notification every time this show goes live. The comment, let me know what you think went wrong tonight, because obviously it was not pretty. 130-111, again, the final score. It got ugly in a hurry, and it did not let up. The Suns did better in the second half, but it just wasn't going to be enough by the time halftime came around, frankly. We'll get into the game. I'm going to give you the moment of the game. It might seem like there wasn't one, but trust me, there was. We'll talk about Luka and defending him and close out the show with some recap segments, as always. Today's show, guys, brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. More from them later in the show, but let's get into it. All right, so again, 130-111. It was 33-15 after one quarter. It was 67-41 after 2 quarters. And I think at that point is when everybody who likes the Suns, who has an internet connection, decided to act like a lunatic. I won't lie, I got into it with some fans on Twitter. It was a ridiculous night of Suns basketball, pretty much all around. The Suns played like crap, and fans did not know what to do with themselves. It's all right, it happens. These games sneak up on you. They can happen. I understand it's Dallas. That is 3 straight first halves that have gone about as poorly as you could possibly imagine against this team. It's just something about the Mavericks, right? And so I want to get into it specifically in this first quarter, because I don't think, the Suns can't beat the Mavs, this is terrible, everything's awful, is actually a good analysis on this one. I don't think the Suns have these awful mistakes and weaknesses that they are never going to be able to solve is reasonable analysis either, which is why I'm calling Suns fans lunatics on the internet. But what I do think is reasonable is to say that the Suns actually did a decent job of defending the Mavericks in the first half of the first quarter. And so when we plop into our moment of the game, as we always do here to start these recap shows, I want to draw your attention to the 6-minute and 40-second mark. All right, so at that point, that's when Ish Wainwright hits his little cockback 3 over the head of Luka Doncic from the left wing. You'll probably remember that shot. It felt pretty good, I'm sure. Ish Wainwright, surprise starter, stepping in, making a 3 over the top of Dallas's best player, who Suns fans probably mostly hate, in Luka Doncic. What that also was Josh Green's first possession of the game, and so it also tied the game at 11. Crazy to think, right? Dallas developed an 18-point lead in the first quarter, but they were tied at only 11 points halfway through that quarter. But when Josh Green's first offensive possession happens, and I'm not giving him full credit, I'm just telling you, him checking in was the inflection point. He came in for Spencer Dinwiddie after the Mavs called a timeout with 6 minutes and 50 seconds to go. On the other side, Tim Hardaway Jr. hit a 3. That made it 14-11. But from the rest of the way, obviously, as you can tell from the final score of that quarter, The Mavs went on a 22-4 run from that timeout on, that check-in of Josh Green. And the reason I don't just say it's the timeout, and I actually do give some of the credit to Josh Green, is because the Mavericks went ahead and turned it into a pretty sizable advantage to have him in there. He's a guy who wasn't even in the rotation most of the series last year against Dallas, right? It was Frank Ntilikina, Davis Bertans, Josh Green. Jason Kidd was just cobbling together anyone he could find, basically, off the bench for the non-Luka minutes. Green played a little, but he was not this guy. When he came in, he quickly had an and one finish. He had another two-pointer. Then he made a three. That's up to 7 points. Then he had a dunk to get to 9. And that was that. 9 points in about 3 minutes for Josh Green from that point when he checked in. And it's not just him. It's not just that. It's how the points were coming. This is a Dallas team that in the playoffs last year, the past basically 2 full seasons, they have been very slow. You know, they've given them their offense fully over to Luka Doncic. It's all his show, and he wants to push he wants to probe the defense. He wants to manipulate the coverage, and he wants to, frankly, probably not expend a ton of energy because he's not always in great shape. Defensively, he can be exposed, and so he gets to control a game if he slows it down. All that is to say, tonight that wasn't really the case. Dallas pushed in this game. They pushed almost 20% of the time off of live rebounds. They pushed 57% of the time off of steals. This is according to Cleaning the Glass. None of those numbers are really major in terms of frequency. But what the Mavs were able to do is really punish the Suns off of those live rebounds. That was the area in transition tonight where they really made the Suns pay. They added 2.5 points per possession over average when they created transition opportunities off of Suns misses. And that's really what they did in that stretch to close the first quarter. They were taking Suns misses. So the first shot that Josh Green makes after he checks in came off of an Ish Wainwright missed 3 after he had just made the one and one finish that he had. They turned an Ish Wainwright bad pass, which this was a killer set of possessions, and it ended up with Damian Lee checking in for Ish Wainwright, and Ish he never played a stretch as long as this the rest of the game. 2 bad misses and a turnover in 3 consecutive possessions for Wainwright, and the Mavs scored on 2 of the 3 of those. Then the dunk that Josh Green made was directly off of a steal that he himself got from Landry Shamet giving the ball up. All right, so 3 of his scores, 6 of his 9 points in this quarter came out of transition opportunities. He also had an assist on a Luka layup after a Devin Booker miss to close the quarter. So he had 9 points and 1 assist, 5 total scoring possessions, and 4 of them came out of transition. Okay, so that's why I focus on him checking in. That's why I highlight that exact moment. Jason Kidd calls the timeout. The Suns tie it at 11, and then Dallas goes on a 22-4 run to close the quarter. It's crazy to think of Josh Green, of all people, as the guy who made all that happen. Of course, you got to give credit to the defense for forcing those turnovers. You got to give credit to Luka for setting up a lot of those plays. But Green was a big difference maker. He helped the Mavericks turn from a team that was inconsistent. The Suns were guarding them pretty well. They didn't really have anything working for them offensively, to a team that was punishing when they pushed the pace and turned a close game into a blowout in about 6 minutes. We're going to talk about Luka next, and I want to tell you why the Suns' successes against Luka actually taught us something interesting about why they might struggle to guard him in the future. First, today's show, guys, brought to you once again by Prize Picks. Look, I've tried all of these games. I've tried them all. And I lost at pretty much all of them until I discovered Prize Picks, because Prize Picks is not like your daily sports games. It is not, because you don't play against a pool of people who maybe game the system for a living. You don't play head-to-head against an opponent that you might not be able to outsmart. No, it's just you versus the Prize Picks player projection. You can win up to 25 times your money, and you just pick 2 to 6 players. So you don't even have to set a full lineup. You don't have to check it day to day. You can set it, forget it, and make your money, and then not play for a week. Whatever makes sense for you, that is how it works. Just you versus the Prize Picks player projection. So let's say going into Wednesday's game, I would honestly say I'm a little bit nervous about if Devin Booker is going to be able to score against Tatum and Brown, just looking at how Dallas guarded him today. So maybe you're actually going to go lower than his points projection. Maybe you're going to say more than his assist projection, for instance. You could go either one of those. You could go on the Celtics side and you could say one of Brown or Tatum's going to go off because the Suns don't have enough to guard both of them. So maybe you say more points for Brown because Bridges is going to be on Tatum. That's how this all works. NBA, NFL, MLB, college sports, esports, NASCAR, they have player projections for just about every sport you can think of. Entries can be made quickly, and they offer safe and fast withdrawals. Download the PrizePicks app today or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play this awesome daily fantasy sports game. First-time users received a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up at prizepicks.com for an instant deposit match up to $100. So we talked about the moment of the game. Now I want to tell you, as I was just saying, why a portion of the game where the Suns actually had some success against Luka could bode poorly for their future. So let me tell you what I mean. Scan the box score with me if you haven't already. There is only one player who played a significant amount of minutes in this game who had a plus-minus that was not negative. Have you found it yet? It was Josh Okogie. All right, and I talked about how well Okogie played in the game on Sunday afternoon against San Antonio. If you listen to that show, you'll remember. He stuffed the box score, and he played with incredible energy. Those are things he has, frankly, always been able to do. But what I highlighted in that game that I think showed up again tonight is that Okogie is, while Torrey Craig is out, while Jay Crowder continues to be in Atlanta, Okogie is the best fill-in for the way those two guys affect the game that the Suns have. It's not to say that Torrey Craig is some type of vital replacement that you need, but look, the reality is the Suns have been making do with Craig as a starter for a long time, and a lot of the things that they've been able to do well have come because of what Craig is doing. Crashing the offensive boards, for instance. Although Okogie didn't necessarily get his hands on any tonight, he's one of the only guys that has a knack for getting a hand on some of those balls. He can cut to the basket and finish with energy. He's going to get some hands on some loose balls. 2 steals and 1 block tonight. And so you look at what the Suns tried to do, and I'll get to how this relates to Luka in a second, but Ish Wainwright started this game, and the Suns' motivation there was pretty obvious, right? Dario Saric is going to be in a bad way if he's having to try to guard Dorian Finney-Smith, or if he's having to try to rotate when Dallas gets into the paint and drives and kicks, right? That's not a recipe for success, all right? And so Wainwright was tasked with that, but it was clear pretty early on that he wasn't going to be able to do much damage, and he was so poor on offense that the Suns just had to bail on it. As I just highlighted in that last segment, he played about 7 minutes in the first quarter and then only 7 minutes for the rest of the game. When Okogie checked in, what it allowed the Suns to do is to guard Luka with Okogie, which was an adjustment because obviously Mikal has always started games against Luka, and up until last year had a ton of success doing it, less so lately. And Mikal guarded Dinwiddie. I actually think that went pretty darn well, but it was kind of too late at that point. This was especially in the third quarter when the Suns started with Okogie in the starting lineup. Part of the reason Okogie has a 0 box score, a plus minus in the box score, is that he played the majority of his minutes in the second half, but there were even some minutes in the second quarter where he did this. Spencer Dinwiddie was 0 of 7 from 2-point range, so aside from his crazy step-back threes and some of the open corner threes he got from kickouts, he had nothing going. The Suns blocked Dinwiddie's shot several times. I want to say at least 2 of Ayton's 3 blocks were of Dinwiddie. And Mikal being able to guard him was smart, it worked, and it saved his energy. You wonder if Mikal didn't have to try to guard Luka from the very beginning of the game, could he have had a better night offensively? Because he's having to do so much defensively, fighting against Luka, trying to switch and read the play and all the stuff he has to do, that you look up 4-11, it's an ugly night. You need more from him offensively, but what's he supposed to do? If Okogie or somebody similar is able to take that Luka matchup, at least for chunks of the game, it goes a long way, right? I don't think Jay Crowder's quick enough or athletic enough to do it. It didn't really work last year. Booker, unfortunately, it's a combination of Booker is going to foul Luka too much. That's going to put him into foul trouble. We saw that happen the first play of the game. Booker fouled Luka, and that's going to be too much of a problem. Again, it's also too much energy for him to expend, and I think he can fall victim to not executing, switching, and rotating and things like that as well. So it's not going to be Booker. Crowder's not here anymore, but even he wasn't a great option. Cam Johnson, we saw how that went, got very ugly in the last round. And so here's where I'm going. Okogie was good against Luka. It allowed Mikal to be very good against Dinwiddie, and for Dinwiddie to be clamped on. Basically wasn't a factor when this adjustment was made. But what did that reveal? Well, it revealed that the Suns' best option to make that defensive plan of attack work is somebody who's not really going to be in the rotation when this team is healthy, as far as we know, because he's a liability on offense. Now, he made 2 of his 5 threes today. If he can be even 30% from deep, I think you can play him. So maybe I shouldn't count it out yet, but we have a lot of seasons of track record dating all the way back to Georgia Tech for Okogie not being a great shooter. And so if he can't become a passable shooter, he's not going to be in the rotation come playoff time. And the Suns don't have another option there, because the starting lineup is actually, you could make the case, a worse defensive starting lineup when Cam Johnson's in there and when Chris Paul is in there. Like, just pound for pound. I would say Torrey Craig is a better overall defender than Cam Johnson, and I would say Payne is, in most cases, going to be a better defensive option than Chris Paul at his age. So you're already getting worse there, and the guys then who are going to be in the bench, okay, Craig, that's good. Maybe he's somebody you think about, but I don't think he can guard Luka like this, and you're running out of options. The Suns have a need to address in terms of a ball handler. They have a need to address in terms of now this type of secondary stopper. Probably best case scenario is they just go ahead and turn Okogie into that guy. Maybe they just try to play him. Maybe I would even advocate for that. But this answer on December 5th actually revealed more questions going forward for the Suns in terms of, okay, this worked. Is it replicable? Is our roster built in such a way that we can actually sustain what we just saw work? And I don't know if the answer is yes. Let's close out the show starting with a bench mob vibe check. We'll go to the box score oddity of the night, and we will close the show out that way. First, today's show also brought to you by mysolarnerd.com. If you live in Arizona, you know how many people out there, grifters I would call them, are out there trying to tell you what they call free solar. Can be yours if you just sign up today. But if you've considered solar, but something about that just felt off, namely, come on, nothing's free in this world, and are these guys really looking out for me? Well, These guys are looking out for you. My Solar Nerd, their mission is simple: help you get the best solar system to fit your needs. They are literally local, truly local. They understand the nuances of going solar in Arizona, and they believe that an educated customer is a happy customer. So if you live in Arizona, they believe switching to solar should mean saving money. Once you're ready, they'll put their industry knowledge to work for you by choosing the best equipment, warranties, and installers in their network. They'll also help you figure out all the credits and incentives on the back end to make sure your transition to solar is as smooth as possible. Our listeners will get a $50 Amazon gift card when you book a no-commitment evaluation. This promotion only for Locked On listeners and only for homeowners by visiting mysolarnerd.com and selecting Locked On in the How'd You Hear About Us section. Make the switch to solar on your terms and start your research process today by visiting mysolarnerd.com and show Locked On some love by letting them know we sent you. Folks, going solar doesn't need to be complicated, and mysolarnerd.com makes it simple. We talked about the moment of the game. We talked about guarding Luka and the puzzle that the Suns are presented with. Box score or bench mob vibe check. I'll just get us out of the way really quickly with this one. Plain and simple, Andrew Shamet just was not good enough today. All right, and that might feel strange considering he was 3 of 7 from 3, but honestly, it probably doesn't feel strange for you because you've been watching this team for all these years now. 2 years now as well. You know that Shamet is just not confident enough to get the job done most of these nights. And when you look at Josh Okogie, the way that he's played, you look at the fact that Damian Lee has already supplanted Shamet in the rotation in terms of minutes, and the fact that you're getting some guys coming back, I would not be surprised. Dwayne Washington was inactive tonight. He had an injury, a hip, I believe. I would not be surprised if Shamet's minutes do dwindle. Nothing today was a surprise. He hesitates with the ball. 2 dribbles and a good decision is kind of the trademark phrase for some of these drive and kick situations. Shamet's not a guy who can do that. He doesn't, launch contested threes often enough, and when he chooses not to launch, he does not take a couple of bounces into the inside the arc and kick it again. He kills the play. It's not even the shooting, it's not even the defense. Those things are passable. It's everything else, and it was another example of that tonight. The box score oddity of the night is an interesting one here, and I was looking through the box score. It's actually kind of crazy. All right, free throws were even, rebounds were even. Exactly. I'm not saying even like close enough. I'm literally telling you they were even. Rebounds, 41 apiece. Free throw attempts, 26 apiece. Total turnovers, 13 apiece. Points in the paint, basically equal, 48 and 42 for the Mavericks. Suns actually had more of those. So what the heck was going on here? I want to point to the 3-point line. All right, the Suns were fine. They generated 38 of these, and they made 34%. It's not killer. It's not going to be a night you write home about, but it was good enough to win the game in a nutshell, in a vacuum, I mean. What was not good enough to win this game was allowing the Mavericks to get up even more of them and make almost half, all right? And it's a few things. Within the 3-point shooting, the secondary box score oddity within that is Tim Hardaway Jr. So let's zero in on him first. He's been playing better lately. All right. Something switched where maybe he just got healthy. I'm not sure what happened here. But on the 29th of November, Jason Kidd decided, all right, I'm playing Tim Hardaway. It was actually the night before was his first start of the season, and then he only played 21 minutes. The next game, he started against the Warriors, and he played 31 minutes. Then he played 40 minutes. Then he played 28 minutes. And then tonight he played 23, but that's partially because it was a blowout. He has been great, but this was only his 3rd game of the season with 50% shooting or better from the field. And coincidentally, those have all come since Jason Kidd decided to go ahead and start him. So very good move by Kidd. the rest of the league is probably a bit disappointed that it happened, because Hardaway was great tonight. He made tons of corner threes, tons of difficult corner threes. He bailed the Mavericks out on a mid-range jumper in that sequence that I was talking about to start the show at the end of the first quarter, and he made 5 of his 9 total threes on the game. So he's one. But again, the three-point shooting overall, something about this team tends to build its confidence from playing the Suns. That feels irrefutable at this point. When you have Christian Wood, who wasn't even on the team in Game 7 of last season, making a one-legged little floater three like he's his teammate Luka Doncic in the third quarter, or fourth quarter maybe. When you have Dinwiddie making his between-the-legs step-back threes routinely again. When you have Hardaway making threes with a hand in his face, etc. It's just, it's irrefutable, like I said. And you compare that to the Suns, and they were not good enough, all right? So it's not just the fact that the Mavs were 20 of 41. It's that the Suns, I think that they should have been able to generate more of them. Or maybe it's that they should have been able to generate more of them for the right players, because Okogie had 5 of the 38 attempts. Campaign had 9. That's fine. Wainwright had 5. All right, so 10 of the 38 threes that the Suns generated went to Wainwright and Okogie. Part of that is that's who was available, but Damian Lee only took 3. Booker only took 2. Mikal only took 6. It's not really what you want. This is a team, the Mavericks, the way that they guard the Suns, especially the way that they guard Book, the way to beat this team is to beat that first level of the defense, get into the paint, and kick out. That needs to be Booker's mindset. I understand taking the shots because, okay, Chris Paul, Cam Johnson are both out. I also need to score. But what the Mavericks are so good at doing is sending extra attention at Booker while also taking away the paint. It feels like that shouldn't be possible. But I just watched back the highlights, and trust me when I tell you, it is possible. I don't understand it, but it's possible. And the main way that it's possible is they are disrespecting the living heck out of everybody else on the team that is not in the paint with feet in the paint like Deandre Ayton often is, or whose name ends with Ooker. All right? Those are the threats that the Mavericks have identified, and they're not really worried about anything at all else. And so whatever it takes, the Suns need to be able to get into the paint, suck the defense in, and kick back out for 3, because they're generating a lot of these threes because of making the right play out of the double. Devin Booker was great in terms of not turning the ball over tonight. He only had 1 turnover. He had 5 assists. It feels sort of crazy, but the Suns only had 11 turnovers. This was not a game like, I believe, Game 4, I want to say, against Dallas last year on the road when it was just a turnover fest. This wasn't that. The Suns were making the right plays. Devin Booker was getting off it when he was doubled, and they were generating threes that way. The problem is that's an easier rotation for the Mavericks to get back out to a shooter when it's just, okay, we're sending a double. We know where the help is. If I'm defending the corner shooter and the wing shooter's defender goes to double Booker, I know the pass is coming to the wing, and I'm going to leave the corner to go guard the wing, and then the center is going to come rotate out. The guy guarding Ayton is going to, X out, what they call it, and go contest the corner if the ball gets there. And then we're fully recovered at that point, and it's not really a threat. Whereas if the Suns are able to get all the way into the paint, touch the paint, and kick it back out, those rotations become a lot longer, a lot harder. The ball gets moving, and the Suns are able to generate threes. I understand it's a lot easier said than done. Oh yeah, just get past the double team and get a foot in the paint. The reality is that's the best and pretty much only way to guard what the Mavericks are doing. Now, that doesn't have to be Booker, though, is the thing, right? That could be the guy who is 1 pass away. Somebody like Mikal Bridges, somebody like Cameron Payne being more of a threat. That did not happen tonight. Those guys were not good enough. And the end result is, yes, they generated 38 threes, but I think a big part of why they only made 13 of them is that they were not particularly threatening deep shots. So that was an elongated box score oddity. It was not just the box score that told us the story there, but I think that was a massive part of why this game went the way that it did. It really came down to that first quarter, guys. Every other situation was at least manageable for the Suns. They won the second half. They scored 70 points in the second half, the Phoenix Suns did. But that moment when Kidd called the timeout and Josh Green checked in and the Mavs started to push the pace, that was all it took. That'll wrap us up. Aaron Edwards will be here tomorrow to spread some cheer, get us back in a happier mood. His shows are fun. There's no game tomorrow, so we will be able to give you a palate cleanse then. But in the meantime, go make Locked On Sports Today your second listen to get caught up on the football weekend, the baseball free agency, and much more around the whole world of sports. That show's available on all podcast platforms, so check that out, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.